going from jutsu to do, do we actually have to lose the combative aspect out? Not necessarily like in its entirety. For example, if you see all jujitsu, like I reviewed recently a book, I showed technique where he was basically grabbing the head and he was twisting it. It's a bit like first degree murder,
Yes.
in a sense. But when you compare it to judo seems much more friendly. Yes, we fall down, we tap out from a submission or an osaikomi or whatever. But do we, going from jutsu to do we actually have to give up the combative part? For example, in Kudo, when it's competition time or crunch time, it goes back to the same old purpose of hitting the target, like the team that hits the target. So it's no longer about, if you miss or if you hit, it's not the purpose. It's actually the preparation, it's your presence. The target is your reflection. So all of that somehow goes back to the side, and we're back to that old mentality of I have to hit it because I have to win. So I guess my question is, in order to go from jutsu to do we, is it necessary, or to become more meditational? Is that a word? Meditation? You have to lose the combative aspect. That's my point. That's my question.
So this is a discussion that happens a lot in Japan too. Yes, exactly. So this is completely my personal opinion, of course, as a man who's been studying that traditional culture in Japan. But I think on how the Do martial arts today has the good and bad sides to it. Yes. So let's start from the good points of it. The good points of the Do martial arts becoming less competitive and effective, yes, or shifting the purpose from actual fighting or almost killing, yes, to train a strong heart and mind. Like in Kendo too, they would say that Kendo is the path of human formation, yes. So to build a mature man or woman, yes, person, yes, right. So shifting the purpose from real combat to mental and physical training to educate a better person definitely accepted more people. Because if real combat or competition was still the main purpose, there will only be a very, very few amount of winners and tons of losers who would think that, oh, my training was basically worthless. If I lose, there's no meaning to my training, if that makes sense, yes. But if the purpose was self-training, yes, and physical, mental training for that individual person's path, yes, winning or losing is just one way to walk down that person's path and not the main purpose. So it definitely says, it definitely would accept more people and provide them a way to walk down their path. Yes. So in a way, that's a good point, I would say. Yes. But if we take a look at the bad points from my point of view, we could definitely understand that in Japan today, it's one of the social problems that I often pick up in my videos. Japan is a very aging country, aging society. We say that about the average age in Japan is 48.9, I recall. Yes. So more than half of the population in Japan is over 50 years old. That's, of course, same in the traditional culture, like in martial arts. Yes. Take, for example, what I train in, Iaido. Yes. Because there are so many people, maybe more than half of the people are older than 50 years old, 60s, 70s. Yes. If they actually try to compete with the younger generation in terms of real combat or in real competition, they have a very hard time winning, which means they'll lose their bases, lose their authority as superiors. Yeah. So they do not want to admit that. Yes. So that's the reason why they say that. That's the reason why they say that no, real fight is not important. It's all about the heart. It's just about the heart. No real skills. No, that's not important. Yes. That's because they want to say that we are better than you. Yes. Because seniority is such an important social system in Japan, right? Yes. That's something not just me, a friend of mine who's been training Kendo for 27 years, for example, point out the same things. I've actually did an interview video. I haven't been able to edit it yet, but he pointed out the same things that very old Kendoka in their 7th or 8th dan, yes, is dragging the young down, yes, pulling their legs for people who really want to get stronger, yes, and saying that no, not skills are not important. It's all about your heart. You don't have a heart yet, kind of thing. Yes. So I would say that these are the good and bad points of the Do martial arts today. Yes.
That's amazing that you said this. Like this is not what I actually expected you to say.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I was expecting more of the survival crisis post World War II to be mentioned. If you want to mention that, to shed more light on that, that would also be really good. But that's the thing. Many martial arts, no, not many. I'm sorry. Like for example, very few actually. Karate, Judo. They're Olympic sports. They're still pretty much combative. But everything else, like even if you search, not underdog, but less popular koryu, for example, sekiguchi, tenjin shinryu, everything you watch on YouTube today is just nothing but kata. However, and people would you would see these people, these comments, the ki is so stupid, this is so outdated, thank God we have, UFC, and now we know what works, this whole thing. However, like these arts that I mentioned are actually the ancestral arts of arts like Judo, which actually gave birth indirectly to the UFC today because of the Gracie family, and that's a whole nother story. However, if you read all the old accounts, especially of the for early Edo period, early Meiji cabinet period, you would see that these jujutsu schools, whether it's Daitoryu Aiki Jujutsu, which gave birth to Aikido, Tenjin Shinryu, Fuzen Ryu, I can list all day long schools. They all went head to head together. Randori was a normal part. They always fought.
Exactly.
So I would say a lot of these schools, minus Judo, I practice Judo, so that's why these old koryu is now like a huge passion of mine in terms of research. A lot of these jujutsu schools, and which some are actually the parent arts of Judo, somehow let go of this I would say combative aspect to them. Like for example, the tradition of dojo yaburi, I would say it's dead now. Are you familiar with the tradition?
Of course, yes.
For those of you who don't know, dojo yaburi is like I'd say a respectful way of going into someone else's jujutsu school, asking to participate in a class, and finally you would do randori with the other students. That's basically it. And a lot of people sometimes they would see the difference in levels or the greatness of techniques, and eventually they either join that school, leaving the old school, or they maintain training in both schools. So it was kind of a way of like a journey for those people who are going around looking for schools, and at the same time it was a great I would say incentive for these schools to train hard, develop themselves in case of someone was challenging them respectfully. They would show up basically. So
that's right.
a lot of these jujutsu schools are now just kata demonstrations. So are these old masters like the soke, I would say the inheritors, are still alive, or is it just them, is it a way of them saying like we are still like the master of the school and that's it, or these schools now have different purpose?
So I just mentioned as one of the examples of the bad points of Japan being a very aging society and such, but also there is, I believe, a factor. I was just listening to your stories. One thing came to my mind is the education. How should I put this? The rules, I guess, and the values in Japanese education has changed a lot too. Yes. So recent years, like actually I haven't mentioned yet, but I actually trained in Shorinji Kempo when I was in university as well. Yes. And university martial art club teams are the most strict martial art teams you can find in Japan. Yes. Club teams do it very, very seriously. Yes. Some people actually have, they can actually tag up with companies from the time they're university students, yes, and people supporting them and stuff like that. So they do it very seriously. So I was a member of the Shorinji Kempo club team in my university in Kyoto. And but for example, my senpai in my class, the seniors in my dojo at the university, they were explaining to me that when they were in our age, like in the kohai class, the senpai, the seniors would literally, for example, take for example randori, they would literally go and punch you as random fights. Of course, we had randori and shorinji kempo as well. They would actually punch you. The way the masters taught the younger generation was much more strict too on physical, for example, physical wishes, not abuse. Like they would, for example, get slapped and when they made mistakes. Yes, that was the norm. Like in our parents' generations. Yes, that was just basically normal. Yeah. But coming into our generations, I was probably right in the transition of that actually. But at some point, society was, no, that's not good. We should stop abuse against students. Teach them in any form, just regular classes and in martial arts. Yes. So the media started to pick up, for example, take for example, sumo became a big problem too in the sumo rooms where they teach their students. The oyakata, which is the leader of the sumo room, being too strict. I think it was a young boy who died from hard training. Yes. And these things became more and more of a big problem. That was a topic that was picked up in Japan. Yes. So the masters, it became very difficult for them to teach competitive moves as well. Yes, because society is like, no, don't be strict to our kids. Exactly. They became more and more protective. Yes, because there's fewer and fewer children. Yes. So I think this change of how we see education, yes, itself was a big influence in Japan too. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. Yes.
Yes. I've heard about this, but everything that like it's all either Japanese literature or Japanese newspaper. So I wasn't really, I couldn't get the right amount of information or the right information, I would say. So it's not something that I discussed, but several people mentioned that, I'm not sure about the generation today, but a lot of kids were actually abused, severely injured. So I guess that's one, but I'm like, for example, I guess what I was trying to say before about the jujutsu schools.
Yep.
Why not? Like, I think the whole thing with the soke is very important. I think they want to, stay in their not, I would say preserving tradition, but preserving their high status. Yes. But aside from the post World War II, like for example, I asked myself, why not these jujutsu schools are still like in the old days, but now we fight and more of humane rules and the tradition is still very much alive. Schools against each other. I believe Japan, I think, would really love this if this would still be a thing. But a lot of them transitioned into more of meditation, showmanship, kata. So do you think this has to do with they're preserving their name more so than the effectiveness of the school? I mean, we all know that these schools competed, they were effective, but I don't think they care about that so much today as to preserving their name, because when Japan transitioned from that old age, they were somewhat left, like nobody gave them the same attention we do like now, for example. Kind of like the fall of the samurai in a sense, but
yep.
jujutsu wise. So do you think that it's one of the reasons or the reason?
I would actually agree with you, yes.